There it goes. Hi guys, welcome back. We're going to continue on with civil rights. I have refreshed my coffee. May or may not have put a little Reese's whipped cream on top for added effect. I'm just saying. So, let's hit our second lecture. This is a 3-part, by the way. Don't forget, it's a 3-part lecture series. If we were in class, we would have covered it over 3 class periods. So this is class period number 2 lecture. We're going to pick up, so if you look at, we hit, just a little bit ago, we hit civil rights in the 1950s. If you look at the second civil rights PowerPoint I have posted for you, just says civil rights PowerPoint, it starts with the civil rights movement as it takes off in the 1960s. It starts with the sit-in movement. In the space of time, because I don't want these PowerPoints to be like an hour and a half long, I'm going to have you guys cover the sit-in movement on your own, and we're going to pick back, which we'll talk about briefly, but I want you to cover it more in depth on your own, and then we will pick up with the Freedom Riders in this lecture. So anyway, so you're going to be covering the depth of sit-ins on your own, but let's cover it somewhat quickly, pretty quick, or as we get started. So, because it was a win. So if we look at the 1950s, you have Brown versus the board, which should be seen as a win, right? Starts off, makes the whole rest of the civil rights movement even possible in the first place. You see the Montgomery Bus boycott, full city integration won because of Rosa Parks kicked it off. Joan Robinson, Dr. King take it over. Full city integration, is established. Raise the roof. That's a win. Little Rock 9, bless their hearts. Especially if you watched the video, they should be seen as a huge win because they survived that year. They did not get beat. They did not quit. They survived that year. So that is a win. The sit-in movement. If we're not sure what a sit-in is, again, it is non-violent, right? Non-violent direct action. The entire civil rights movement revolves around non-violence. So keep that in mind. This looks very blurry. I might need to scoot back. How fucking good does that look? No, it's still blurry. Mine might be too close. Anyway, so everything is non-violent. Sit-ins, which is basically where you go and you do not leave until you are heard, and or your demands are met. Sit-in movement starts in South Carolina when African Americans go into a Woolworth store. There's these 2 types of stores called Woolworth stores and Crest stores, which are kind of the equivalent of a CVS and a Walgreens. Basically the exact same type of store. You can get all sorts of different stuff at them. You can get school supplies, which are why these college kids in North Carolina went into them in the first place to buy school supplies. Again, they contain all sorts of stuff, but you can also eat. They contain lunch counters. My hair looks much cuter in this video. I'm just saying. See, I told you it was cute. Anyway, girl moment. They figured since so many was good in one part of the store, it was good in every part of the store, right? So they go to the lunch counter, ask to see a menu, they're ignored. And they're ignored all day. They come back the next day. They're ignored again. It starts off, Damon. Quit. It starts off the the sit-in movement in the 1960s. This becomes a nationwide movement all across the North. Well, from North Carolina up. All the way, long story short, to Tennessee. There are people, blacks and whites in every state, who are targeting Crest stores and Woolworth stores and these sit-in movements, these lunch counters in these stores. Hi, buddy. And quit. So it starts in North Carolina. Long story short, it reaches its height in Tennessee, in Nashville, Tennessee, which is where it will reach its height. And long story short, as you will see as you look over on your own, it is another win for the civil rights movement. So that's technically 4 wins in a row, right? Brown versus the board, Montgomery Bus boycott, Little Rock 9, sit-ins. This is going well, don't you think? But not all of them are wins. there are some really, really horrific losses as well. Case in point being the Freedom Riders. You guys let her walk by. Don't be rude. I have too much of a zoo in my apartment. Cats walk by, dogs are like staring them down. Anyway, so this kind of goes back a little bit to the Montgomery bus boycott. It revolves around bus integration. Don't forget, Montgomery bus boycott was just contained to that one city, right? Just Montgomery. Every other location across the country, it's still the same. There's still black and white waiting rooms, there's black and white facilities, there's black and white everything. Blacks and whites can still ride the same bus, but the first row an African American can sit on is the fourth row. That's still that way across the country. So now, way back before Brown versus the Board, in the late 1940s, early 1950s. I don't want to get my year wrong. I don't even know where I am. Blah 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 blah. Bear with me for a minute. Oh, I'm on the wrong PowerPoint. That is why. Haha. Okay, here we go. Where's my year? 1947, there we go. So, but way before, almost a decade before Brown versus the Board. 1947, this had been tried before with the concept of ganging integration on the busing system across the country. So there was a group of people called the CORE, is what they called themselves. Is the Congress of Racial Equality, CORE, was what they stood for. And so way before the Civil Rights Movement was even kicked off with Brown versus the Board, they still tried to fight this fight. They came up with the concept of they were going to take a bus and ride it from D.C. all the way down south, with blacks sitting up front, whites sitting in the back, making the point that everyone should be able to sit anywhere they did so wish, that this, segregation was ridiculous. And when they did stop because they needed to eat or they needed to use the, facilities, whatever the case may be, blacks would go into white facilities, whites would go into black facilities, again, making the point people should have the right to go anywhere they wished. So again, this happened, 7 years before Brown versus the Board, and to say it was a bloodbath would be an understatement. It was really horrific what happened to these people. They barely make it out of the North. They barely touch the upper South. All hell breaks loose. It's just a colossal bloodbath, and it's a complete failure. They barely get started, and they come to a pretty viciously violent quick end. But the concept had been born. The idea had been born. The fight had been born, let's just say. Come now to 1961, Civil Rights Movement is in full effect. We have basically what it feels like nothing but nonviolent victories on the board. And let's try this again. Let's pick up where the first group left off. Let's pick up where the CORE left off. Try this again. Times have changed. The country is changing. Belief system is changing. This fight movement has started. This time we might be able to get it accomplished. So, not letting the first group to die off, not letting their efforts to die in vain, or leaving their efforts to die in vain. The first group this new group will pick up where the first group left off, where the CORE left off. This group, they will call themselves the Freedom Riders, not like the Hilary Swank movie, which by the way is a brilliant movie. That's with a W. Riders with an R. They're going to do what the first group, or they're going to take the first group's plan and expand on it just a little bit. But their goal is to take a bus, ride it across the country, blacks sit up front, whites in the back. Ruby! Ruby! Get over here. Get over here. Get over here. Hush. Damon, don't start. Oh my gosh, you're fine. You're fine. Come lay down. Excuse the interruption. No, ma'am. Damon, go lay down. Calm down. It's enough. Now everybody's worked up. Leave the cats alone. Anywho, where were D? That was unnecessary. Did you know that? That was unnecessary. No, ma'am. Can you say you're sorry? Say I'm sorry. Anywho, so blacks up front, whites in the back, and this time they believe they have a much better shot at gaining A, national attention, B, having this be a success way more than the first group did, right? Times have changed. Not only that, they're really wanting to get to catch the attention of the current president, who is, in fact, Kennedy. When Kennedy was on the campaign trail, getting elected, he very much was pro-civil rights all the way. It was a part of his campaign. He made all these promises in terms of what he had in mind for civil rights. All of these things on his agenda, etc., helped, which people believed. But now that he's become president, all of those things he's promised in terms of civil rights, following instead of Eisenhower, seem to have fallen on the back burner. He doesn't quite appear. My couch cushion was coming off. I was like, I'm gonna sit lopsided. Anyway, he doesn't appear to be proactive about anything he said he was going to do in terms of civil rights. Which, in his defense, he is dealing with the Cold War hardcore from the minute he gets in the office. He is dealing with Vietnam. He does have a lot of things on his plate. It's not like he's just ignoring it on purpose. He just, he feels that he is not giving it. He is not giving it the attention that it needs, or he promised. But again, he's not sitting there binge watching Criminal Minds saying I'll get to it later either. So it's not as black and white as it seems. But again, there's two sides to every coin. To African Americans, it feels like he promised them all these things, and now he's just not concerned about it. He'll get to it whenever he feels like it, and they're like, oh hell no. So trying to catch his attention, trying to get him way more proactive is a part of this goal too. So the goal is to leave DC. Because they know this is going to gain national attention wherever they go and whatever happens. Goal is to leave D.C. and to arrive in New Orleans on the anniversary of Brown versus the Board on May 17th. So they leave May 4th, 1961. They want to arrive in New Orleans May 17th. Yes, which would be the 7th anniversary of Brown versus the Board. That is their goal. But then, considering what happened last time, they know what could happen this time, right? And one of the writers even says, as I was playing, James Farmer, who was one of the original Freedom Writers, he says, when we began the ride, I think all of us were prepared for as much violence as could be thrown at us. We were prepared for the possibility of death. Because that's what the first group had faced, right? So they go they kind of get a little bit more inspired, because as they go through the upper south, good God, as they go through the lower north, it's pretty peaceful. It's pretty peaceful. There's no real action taken. They're pretty much left alone. And they're like, okay, all right. So as they go through, they travel to the north, things are going pretty peacefully. But then they enter the upper south, which is where the Corps in 1947 faced opposition. And this is where all the hair on the back of the neck goes up. This is where the air of tension and the feel of panic sets in, because this is where things broke apart last time. But as they go through the upper north, as they go through North Carolina and so on and so forth, it's pretty peaceful. You've got people here and there, but nothing big, no riots, no groups of people, battering at them, no one trying, hey baby, nobody trying to break them down, and it goes pretty smoothly, long story short, all things considered. And they begin to believe maybe enough time has passed. Maybe there has been enough change. Maybe enough has transpired that this time this can be a success story. And their confidence starts to grow. So their confidence grows so much that as they hit the border of Alabama, that they decide, you know what? It takes two, right? Let's double it up. They're going to get, same amount of people. No one else is going to join this fight. They're not going to ask for reinforcements. But the group of people, But this group of people are going to get another bus, and then the group of people are going to split between the two buses, half on one, half of the other, and take two treks, take two journeys, covering twice the distance, gaining twice the attention, both arriving in New Orleans on May 17th, right? That is their goal, just help, double the attention and focus that their mission has. So, they get a second bus, they break into two groups, they travel on their way, getting more and more confident, but as they enter Alabama, that is where they should. That is where they shouldn't have. As they enter Alabama, all hell is going to break loose. The first bus enters Anniston, or just say group Anniston. Yeah, the first bus enters Anniston, Alabama. And as soon as they hit the heart of the town of Anniston, they look up, and their bus is just being bombarded, absolutely bombarded, from just about every side, by a group of about 200 people, 200, Confederates who are still believing in that cause, carrying the flag. 200, in this group there are KKK members in full attire, and then there's just civilians. And they storm this bus. They surround this bus. They're throwing, rocks and sticks, and they're through rocks and bricks through the windows. They have bats. They're beating on the bus. They're smashing windows in. They have knives. They're slashing at the tires. They're surrounding it. They're pushing on it. They're chanting. They're hollering. They're screaming. And people are scared for their lives. Who wouldn't be, right? But the bus keeps rolling, because if they stop, they're dead ducks. So they're rolling and rolling, but again, they're slashing at the tires, and things are just bad for a few blocks. But then the bus finally makes a sharp move, takes a turn, is able to break out of the pack, and they go, thank God, and they try to take off and escape, right? But again, people have been slashing at those tires, and they were cut, and damage was done. So as the bus tries to accelerate and get the hell out of there, the tires will go flat, the tires will fall apart, and right outside the city, the downtown area of the city of Anniston, the bus will break down. It'll roll to a stop, and all of those people who have been, in the town square, been following, because they knew this bus was going to break down. And as this group of people are inside this bus, scared to death of what's coming next, the group of KKK members and everyone else will surround the bus. Nobody gets off. And as all the people are inside, scared to death, waiting to see what happens, the bus is firebombed. Which, if we're not familiar with what a firebomb is, long story short, you take basically like a bottle of whiskey, put a rag down in it, light that rag on fire, and then throw it. So when that, the bottle hits something and it breaks, that rag is on fire and it explodes. Whiskey, alcohol is flammable. So it's literally like an alcohol bomb. It's a firebomb. And this bus is firebombed, and everybody aboard that bus is not allowed off, and these people just sit there and watch and listen as these people are just, they're burned and they're killed alive. It's about as horrific as it freaking gets. It's just atrocious. It's atrocious. And the second bus didn't fare much better. The second bus hits Birmingham, Alabama. Downtown area, same thing. They get bombarded by, flocked by a group of hundreds of spectators as well. Who right there, the bus doesn't get away. Right there in the square, the crowd storms this bus. They're able to get on. And basically every person on that bus will be either beat to death or beat to an inch of their life. There will be survivors on this one, thankfully. But the survivors don't go unscathed. They don't get away unscathed. Mentally, forever changed, I'm sure. Beaten to a bloody pulp. But everyone on that bus, was either beaten to an inch of their lives and or killed. And this thing, two cities in Alabama has met horrific fates, and it just seems like it's over, right? The buses are just detrimented. Buses can't continue on. There's only a handful of them that are still alive. But bless their freaking hearts. Because again, everyone hears, those who survive this thing are taken to the hospital. They're treated for their injuries. They want to keep going. They don't want this to be over. They don't want this to die in vain. We really haven't had a loss of this magnitude. This can't be it, right? This just can't be it. So they are desperate to continue on. They still believe that victory in this thing is possible, or at least getting to New Orleans is possible, right? The busing company doesn't, though. Busing companies just lost 2 flippin' buses. They're good. They're quite good. They're not willing to put up any extra money into this thing. Are you kidding? No one's really willing to help this first group, to help the rest of this first group. So basically, kind of dreams crushed, per se. Those survivors of this first wave had no other choice. They're going to, tail between their legs, have to give up. disheartenedly, will catch a plane and fly to New Orleans believing this is over. But it's not over yet. 4, just coming off a huge win the year before up in Nashville, there are a couple dozen students who are involved in the sit-in movement, who when they hear about what's happened to the Freedom Riders, they're like, well, if something like that happened to us, I sure would hope someone would continue on if I couldn't. Would continue on our fight for us. And fueled by the victory of just coming off this win, you will have, 2 or so dozen sit-in students decide to partake in this, and they will carry on the strike. They will carry on the fight. They're actually going to fly to Alabama. They're going to get a hold of a different busing company, convince this busing company to give them a bus. They're all going to fly to Birmingham, Alabama, and they're going to pick up where the original group left off. They're going to get on this bus and finish this ride for them. They will not let this go down and these people die in vain. Now, Alabama, after what happened in Anniston and what happened in Birmingham, are looking pretty damn bad. Let's be quite honest. They're looking pretty damn bad. They're receiving a lot of heat, a lot of clout, and they have not been apologetic up until this point. Oh, where is my quote? Do I have the quote? Yeah, the Alabama, when asked about the situation, the Alabama governor, John Patterson, offered no apologies, explaining, when you go somewhere looking for trouble, you usually find it. You can't guarantee the safety of a fool, and that's what these folks are. They're just fools. So they've been raked over the coals for that, right? So this time, to save face, the state police, when the second group gets to Birmingham, the state police promised that a private plane would fly over the bus. There would be state patrol cars every 15 or 20 miles along the highway between Birmingham and Montgomery. About 90 miles, they would have police protection. Here's the deal. They want to do as little as humanly possible. Do they really care if this thing succeeds? Do they really want this thing to succeed? No, they don't. And here's the deal. So they may not have jurisdiction. How many cities have you been in where you see if you're in Weatherford and you see a Hood County police car, okay, he may not have jurisdiction, but just his presence can do a lot, right? It'll probably get you to slow down. It'll probably make sure you're not speeding and you have your seatbelt on, right? Make sure you stop at that stop sign. They can still have, they cannot be in their designated city where they actually, do have jurisdiction, but they still have police. They still have freaking power. They can still technically pull people over. They can still technically leave an impression. So yeah, they don't have jurisdiction in Montgomery. They could have gone with them through Montgomery. They could have gone with these people and given these people a police escort all the way to freaking New Orleans if they really wanted to. But we don't have jurisdiction. Gosh darn, I guess no point of us going any further with you. We'll just leave you at the Montgomery city limits because that's where our jurisdiction stops. And after that, you're on your own. But that'll make us look good, right? We'll at least protect you for about 90 miles. Pat us on the freaking back, right? At least we're the ones that did something. So stupid. It's so stupid. So stupid. But anyway, that's what happens. Throughout Birmingham, throughout Birmingham, they are protected. They do have a police escort. But, and again, they could have gone with them all the way to freaking Mexico. They could have driven with them the entire way. But you know what? They used that loophole. Get out of it. They hit the Montgomery city lines. This bus is on their own. And as they roll through the streets of Montgomery, it's a ghost town. It's just a flipping ghost town. There might as well have been freaking tumbleweeds blowing down the freaking street, right? Nobody's inside. There's no cars on the roads. There's not a person walking their dog. There's no one jogging down the road. There's nobody. It's like, where are all the freaking people, right? Where are all the freaking people? Well, guess what? They were all waiting. For as this bus pulls into the Montgomery bus depot, just like we saw in Birmingham and Anniston, this huge flock of people will come from from every angle. They're popping up from nowhere. There's popping out of friggin' invisible coming into sight from fresh air. They will storm this bus. And once again, it goes into a little bit of detail in my PowerPoint. There's no need to go into the horrificness here. But people will be I mean, people will, this bus will be stormed. People will be beaten to death in their seats. People will be pulled out into the streets and beaten to death. Again, there will be some survivors, less than the first time. Small handful. A few people will survive this thing, but not many. And James Farmer, no, he was the one who was up in DC. Do I have it? Or can I see it? Nope, I don't have it. Anyway, there's a story. There's a story about one of the Freedom Riders who was, had been beaten to bloody pulp and left in a seat as they moved on to somebody else. And he watched one of his friends who had been pulled off the bus by his hair, pulled out into the streets, and then with a pipe had been beaten and had been whacked in the leg and had been hit so hard in the leg it caused a... Damon, leave her alone. We will go for a walk soon, okay? Let me finish my lecture. Just please lay down and be good. Leave the cat alone. Leave the cat alone. He had been pulled into the street. He'd been hit in the leg with a lead pipe. Compound fracture. His bone was sticking out through his leg. He hits the ground, so he can't walk. He hits the ground, he's trying to crawl. He's trying to crawl for his safety. And the man who had pulled him out by his hair hit him was KKK. He was in his attire. Let her by. Come here. You come lay down. Yay! My poor 15-year-old cat. Hang on, people. Neo. Oh no, honey, hang on. I know, sugar. These dogs are crazy. Come here. Oh my god. Oh my goodness. You're okay. You're okay. I know. You're okay. Alright, well, this is my 15-year-old cat, Lily. She's still kicking. She's the target of the dogs from time to time. Bless her heart. I know, Yeo. Well, you can sit here and teach with me. Okay. They're not gonna get you, baby. They're not gonna get you. Yeah. Say hi, guys. Anywho, so you've been pulled to the KKK. This story's taking forever, isn't it? I know, baby. So the KKK pull this man out by his hair, pull him in the street, bash him in the leg. This is a long story. Bash him in the leg. He's trying to crawl. I mean, he's crawling for his life. He can't walk. His leg has been fractured. So he's crawling for his life, and this KKK member is following him, and he's laughing at him. As this man is crawling for his life, scared to death, this KKK member is laughing at him and kicking dust on him and mocking him until he's had his fun, and his friend watches from inside the bus as this KKK member puts down his hood, picks up his lead pipe, bashes this man over the head in the street, and kills him right there in the street. With all the animal commotion that was... I know. With all the animal commotion, that was a heck of a story, I'm sure. But anywho, see, lifetime, prime time. But anywho, it was just a bloodbath. It's very, very few people survive. And once again, this thing seems over. Considering what happened in Innisfail, considering what happened in Birmingham, considering what happened in Montgomery, who the hell is going to try it now, right? But this, of course, reaches the ears of Dr. King, right? This reaches the ears of Dr. King, who is just not willing to let these people's efforts die in vain. This will become his next target. Target's the wrong word. This will become his next mission. This will become his next focus point. And he is going to fly to Montgomery and figure out how in the heck we're going to continue on now. Because again, this isn't over. We're not going to let this be it. We haven't had a loss like this yet, and we're not going to now. I know. Just ask us. So he flies to Montgomery. Let it be known he's flying to Montgomery too, by the way. He flies to Montgomery and says, anybody who's willing to partake in this with me, let's figure this out. We're all going to meet at this Baptist church in Montgomery. Meet me here. He's a Baptist pastor. He can, has access to it. Or asks for access to it. And so he and all these other civil rights leaders, again, the Montgomery Improvement Association, they're all meeting, trying to figure out their next steps. And as they're in this church in Montgomery figuring out their next steps, Shadow, that's my coffee. I know. They start to hear voices. They start to hear voices, through an open window. And the voices continue to grow. There's more and more voices. They're getting a little more hostile. And finally, King goes, it's one of those things where eventually it was just kind of hearing a voice in the air, right? But next thing you know, there's obviously several voices. There's several people that have to be outside. So King goes to look. And what he sees is the KKK are in the front yard of this church. They have lit a cross on fire, and they're holding hands, looking, staring in the direction inside the church. They are obviously targeted. Things can go from bad to worse very quickly if they don't play their cards right. What do they do? This is such a family affair right now. One dog here, one dog here. Both cats. Y'all are crazy. King picks up the phone and makes a call to somebody he knows who can handle the situation that fast, and that is Robert Kennedy, the Attorney General, John F. Kennedy's brother. So he calls Robert Kennedy. Robert Kennedy immediately gets on the phone, gets the Alabama National Guard down there. Alabama National Guard get there in time. They're able to escort King and everyone else safely out of the building, safely transport them to safety. But even the Kennedys at this point, considering what just King's presence in Alabama had done. I mean, he had been there for how many hours, and he had already been targeted by the KKK. And if the guard hadn't gotten there, gosh only knows what would have happened. You're so needy right now. She says, I'm 15, I'm allowed to be needy. Gosh. So, even the Kennedys are saying, you know what, King, we can appreciate your efforts, we can appreciate what you're trying to do here, but let this one go. For your own good, for everyone's safety, this one you just need to let go. Just let it die off. But King is king, and he's like, I just can't. We can't let these people's efforts die in vain. We can't have a loss of this magnitude. It'll, deflate the sales of this movement. We can't just let this, we can't just let this die off. We can't just let these people think they've won. We can't. And the Kennedys, both Robert and John, are very sympathetic. They're like, look, we completely understand, but this isn't a debate. This isn't a negotiation. We're telling you. I'm sorry it's come to this, but let this one go. He just can't. He continues to make arguments as to why they can continue on. And finally, Robert Kennedy's like, look, dude, you're not hearing me. You're not hearing me. What we care about most here is keeping you freaking alive, right? You will either let this one go, or we're going to throw you in jail for your own freaking safety and hold you there until you agree to let this one go. Because at least inside a jail cell, you're freaking alive, right? So for your own good, for your own protection, we are going to throw you in jail and keep you there until you decide to give up, because we don't want any more lives lost in this thing. What's it going to be? Well, King calls her bluff. And King asks for anybody willing to continue on with the Freedom Ride to come to Montgomery and continue on. To their credit, over 200 people do. And all 200 of them find themselves in a jail cell, locked up for most of the summer. Because the Kennedys made good on their promise. King himself spent time in jail because he was not going to let this thing go. And again, this is not malicious. The Kennedys aren't siding with the freaking South. They're like, literally, like, we would rather have you sitting in a jail cell alive than trying this again and getting killed. So even eventually, eventually even King will have to admit this one's over. This is a done deal, and he's going to have to agree to let this one go. And it just deflates a lot of people's hope. And it really is just this huge kick in the gut of the civil rights movement for a little bit. People take this loss really, really hard. It's the first time we've had a loss of this magnitude. So, present time in 1960, it's 1961, 1962. It's a horrible, horrible loss. And it's hard felt by a lot of people. But even while this might be a loss right now, guess what? Even this one's, or why we may lose then, or they feel like they've lost then, their efforts, because King's like, we can't let these people's efforts die in vain. Well, they won't. They won't. For what they were fighting for is fixing to be accomplished in just a few short years when Kennedy starts the process on the Civil Rights Act of 1964. What they were fighting for, they will still get. It's just going to take a little bit more time. But still, at the present time, it's a hard loss. And it comes right also almost at the same time as another loss that I was always going to have you, if you look at your review, read over in your book on your own. The battle, or it's not a battle, the events of Birmingham. There's another, back in Alabama, there's another event not long after the Freedom Riders in Birmingham, Alabama. That's another huge loss. Bless their heart. It's just Bull Connor is your big name involved in that one, and it's just another horrible incident. And long story short, with basically what are perceived as losses, two horrible events in which we did not succeed. We did not come out on we did not come out on top. It really starts to take the wind out of the sails of this movement. People start to lose hope. People start to lose faith that this is going to work. And it's, King starts to get desperate. King starts to get worried about people giving up. Because they had come so far and they had made such strides. But if people gave up, then, what was going to happen next? And could they even start over? So finding a way to remotivate people. Trying to find a way to get people back on track and re-inspire and re-strengthen this movement. King is desperate for some way, somehow to do that. And he will find one, by the way. He will find one. The answer will come with this thing called the March on Washington, which will take place in August of 1963. Which, this is when we all know King gives his famous speech, right? Did you know that the March on Washington actually didn't happen because of King? Who out there knows the name Philip Randolph? Not many people actually know his name, which is sad because Philip Randolph is actually the man responsible for the March on Washington even occurring in the first place. Well, exactly. That's what I was thinking too. You're so smart, Lily. Yeah. So Philip Randolph had been a part of this civil rights movement from the get-go too, and was one of the huge activists. Had been a part as well, and understood King's frustration and King's need to get people back on track and the urgency of the situation. So, he will be the one to start. Philip Randolph is actually the backbone and the man who starts this whole thing off and ensures this thing is going to happen at all. Which is important to note, this is not the first time we have seen a March on Washington occur. You've read about 2 so far. There's been like 5, by the way. There's been some school marches. I think I have the information in here, which Lily is not being helpful in letting me find. Yeah, the Youth March for Integrated Schools had occurred before that. A march for the prayer pilgrimage for freedom had occurred in 1957. So we've seen March on Washington's, long story short. You read about in chapter 21, the Coxey's Army, the ones who got arrested for walking on the grass around the Capitol. And then we saw another not long ago during the Depression, when the bonus marchers marched to Washington, D.C. to get their bonus checks cashed, and Douglas MacArthur kind of unleashed a reign of hell on them. So we've seen March on Washingtons occur before, just none have really been successful. And Philip Randolph, who has researched this and looked into this, and he's kind of come up with the idea for this, looks at why. And each time before this, Washington has kind of felt ambushed. From Coxey's Army all the way on, it's almost felt like an attack. These March on Washingtons have felt like this unpronounced attack. Kind of a surprise, we're here type of thing. And just not, not done right. So King, Philip Randolph and King kind of have an idea for something like this, but they want to make sure they do things the right way so that they don't meet any opposition. So Randolph is actually going to contact, if I can see it on here, Stuart Udall of the State Department of May of 1962. He's going to start work on this thing in 1962. And he says he's going to contact the State Department and say, look, Ruby, this is what we're thinking. This is what we want to do. This is what we want to, or this is why. This is who we want to involve. This is what our hope, our goals are. We want your permission to hold it. We're telling you way in advance, hey, we're coming. This is a non-violent celebration of this movement that's transpired. But we want to, first give you a heads up, we're coming, so you don't feel ambushed. We want to lay it out there and tell you everything we have planned, what we plan on have happening, what our goals are, the numbers we're expecting. But no, we also want your permission, and we also want your agreement that we will have protection. You will have enough people out there to protect us from, anyone trying to stop us, anyone trying to hurt us, anyone attacking. We want your permission that you're going to give us, protection for this to occur, and just your agreement that we can hold it, we can have it. He starts the process. Philip Randolph starts the process of this in May of '62. My mother is calling me. So my phone goes off. He starts a process in 1962. It's not until early 1963 he finally gets the agreement. In March of 1963, Randolph finally telegraphs King that the march was on. And from that point on, so now they have to plan a date. They have to plan a date for it, plan a time for it, and start asking people to participate. So they decide to set the date for August 28th, 1963, which will give them enough time to plan it, enough time to advertise it, enough time to spread the word, enough time to ask all the people that they want to participate in it to attend. Because they want this to be a whole day, and they want this to be a whole day of celebration. Yes, people will be speaking, people will be talking, but they also want entertainment, because it's boring just to listen to, speaker after speaker after speaker. So what they want is for someone inspirational and motivational to get up and speech, to re-inspire and re-motivate and get people back on track. But then let's celebrate for a little bit, have some entertainment, have someone like Bob Dylan, who will be asked and will say yes, perform for a little bit, and then you'll have another speaker. So Ruby, stop it. Quit. You'll have a speaker, and then you will have an entertainer, and then you have a speaker, and then you'll have an entertainer, etc., etc. So we start to plan this. There's all sorts of big names that will be asked. All sorts of big names that will be asked. Yeah, in May, at the height of the Birmingham campaign, King joined Randolph in calling for such an action later that year, declaring, "Let the black laboring masses speak." And all sorts of people, again, will attend. You will have... Where are all my names? Can I not see my names? Gosh darn it. Here we go. Marian Anderson, Joan Baez, Odetta James, Bob Dylan, Little Rock Civil Rights veteran Daisy Lee Bates, Rosa Parks. So many huge names that have been involved up until this point. Up until this point. It's interesting, though, because a big name that was asked that declined was Bob Dylan. Excuse me, not Bob Dylan. He was there. I was looking at his name as I looked at my slide. Was Malcolm X, which is kind of interesting because Malcolm X is a phenomenal human being, phenomenal advocate. Like, holy crap, is he, phenomenal human being. But he didn't trust the March on Washington. He thought he smelled a rat. He thought there was trouble afoot. He will turn it down. Everyone else who was asked, though, will attend. Again, the goal is to re-inspire, re-motivate, but also catch the attention once again, hopefully, of President Kennedy, who still hasn't acted on anything he promised from his campaign. It all still seems to be on the back burner. So there's all sorts of different levels to this. It's, just all sorts of hopes and dreams for this thing. And that for it just to be a success. Which it will be. The day of August 28th, 1963. 28,000. August 28th. 200,000 people will be in attendance throughout the day. That is insane numbers. What are you eating? Y'all are all driving me crazy right now. 200,000 people will attend throughout the entire day. And so it starts to grow, it just continues to grow. Nobody leaves. Not one person leaves. The numbers just continue to grow and grow and grow. And people are motivated. They are inspired. Not only does it catch the attention of Washington, it catches the attention of the freaking country. And it's just this day of inspiration and just sheer joy and beauty in this. The aspect of this all comes to light. And again, people just continue to grow. The numbers grow all day long. Nobody leaving. Because with all these phenomenal people who are there and who are speaking, Philip Randolph speaks, nobody wants to leave because everybody wants to hear what the keynote speaker of the day has to say. And as we all know, the keynote speaker of the day was in fact Dr. King, who, as the sun started to set, walked up to the podium. All the others have been to the day before. All speakers and performers that have taken part on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial, right? And so as the sun starts to set over the Lincoln Memorial and the sun starts to set over this beautiful, the beautiful memorials, King steps to that podium and delivers one of the greatest speeches of all time. I Have a Dream. If you have not ever read the text, I highly recommend you go on there and look it over. King is hands down easily one of the most brilliant speakers I have ever heard. Like, sensational gains a whole new phrase when it comes to the way that man can write. The I Have a Dream speech is one of the most beautifully written things I've ever read in my life. So I highly recommend, if you have not read it, to go and just read how he puts things. The adjectives and the adverbs and how he makes things flow and puts things together. It's just shocking. It's stunning. But the March on Washington, long story short, will gain the attention of a country. It'll re-inspire a country. It'll re-motivate. Everything it was meant to do, it did. And it finally gains the attention of a president by the name of JFK, who not long after will start work on the Civil Rights Act of 1964. But JFK, while he starts work on it, he will not be able to sign it into law. For 3 months after the March on Washington, Kennedy will be assassinated. But this has been kind of an all over the place lecture, right? We've had that all my in-laws are going crazy. It's been one of those lectures. We're already 50 minutes in. So before we start Kennedy's assassination, which is really juicy, we're going to go ahead and conclude there. I apologize for all the distractions today. My phone's going off. My animals are acting crazy right now. It's one of those days. So anyway, I'm going to pause for a little bit. I'm going to take the dogs for a walk. Maybe that will calm them down. And I will see you again soon to finish up our Civil Rights lecture series. I almost said PowerPoint. Our Civil Rights lecture series. Say bye. Say we will see you soon.